The council chamber hung in the darkness between stars. It was a massive sphere of crystalline walls that reflected the light of distant galaxies. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered in their designated sections. The Three-Caxi delegation occupied the lower tiers with their insectoid bodies gleaming under the chamber lights. Above them, the luminars floated as beings of pure energy contained in magnetic fields. The aquatic Dranathi rested in their pressurized tanks filled with ammonia-based fluid. Ambassador Zethral clicked his mandibles nervously. He was a senior member of the Three-Caxi diplomatic corps. His species had been part of the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. In all that time, he had never seen the chamber filled with such tension. The holographic display at the center showed 3 separate colony worlds. All 3 had gone silent within the same rotation. The High Chancellor, a luminar named Bright Thought in Darkness, pulsed with concerned blue light. Its voice came through translation devices worn by all physical beings present. We have confirmed the attacks. All 3 colonies were struck by the same unknown force. The attackers left no survivors. They took no prisoners. They destroyed every orbital defense platform and disabled all communication arrays before they left. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. 3 colonies in one attack was unprecedented. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for generations. Wars were things of ancient history, settled through diplomacy and trade agreements. "Do we know who did this?" asked Representative Krell of the Dranathi. His translator made his bubbling speech sound flat and emotionless. "Yes," Bright Thought replied. The hologram shifted to show grainy footage from a surviving probe. "We have identified the attackers. They call themselves humans." The word meant nothing to Zethral. He accessed the council database through his neural implant. The results were sparse. Humans were listed as a recently discovered species from a planet called Earth. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel about 300 standard years ago. Their territory consisted of maybe 40 colonized systems on the far edge of council space, a minor species. Zethral said aloud, "Barely advanced enough to be noticed. Why would they attack council colonies?" "That is what we must determine," the Chancellor said. "Ambassador Zethral, you have been selected to lead the investigation. You will take a diplomatic vessel to human space and attempt to establish communication. If communication fails, you will gather intelligence on their capabilities." Zethral felt his primary heart skip a beat. This was both an honor and a potential death sentence. "I accept the assignment," he said, because refusing was not an option. In the meantime, Bright Thought continued. "We are dispatching a fleet to secure our borders. Admiral Kethmore will command 50 warships. They will intercept any human vessels that approach council space." 50 warships. Zethral felt a flicker of concern. That seemed excessive for dealing with a species that had only 40 colonies. But he kept his thoughts to himself. Perhaps the council knew something he did not. The session ended with standard diplomatic formalities. Zethral left the chamber and made his way to the docking bay where his ship waited. It was a small vessel, built for speed rather than comfort. His crew consisted of just 5 others, all specialists in various fields of xenology and military analysis. As the ship entered faster-than-light travel, Zethral reviewed the available data on humans. It was not encouraging. Their ships were crude by council standards. Their weapons technology was at least a century behind the cutting edge. They had no energy shields, relying instead on thick armor plating. Their faster-than-light drives were inefficient and slow. They should not have been able to defeat our colonies. His military analyst, a young Three-Caxi named Relthan, observed. The defense platforms alone should have destroyed any attacking force. Perhaps they had surprise on their side. Zethral suggested. Or perhaps there is something about humans we do not yet understand. They would not have to wait long to find out. 2 days into their journey, they received an urgent transmission from Admiral Kethmore's fleet. "We have made contact with human forces," the Admiral reported. His voice carried an edge that Zethral had never heard before. "They are not running. They are not attempting to negotiate. They are attacking." "How many ships?" Zethral asked. 12, the Admiral replied. "We outnumber them more than 4 to 1. They must know this is suicide." Zethral felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. 12 ships against 50 was not a battle. It was a massacre. No rational species would engage in such a fight unless they knew something their enemy did not. "Be careful, Admiral. he said. "There may be—" The transmission cut off. For several long moments there was only static. Then it came back. But the Admiral's voice had changed. It was strained, almost panicked. "They are ramming us. By the first light, they are deliberately ramming our ships. They do not care about their own survival." Zethral pulled up the tactical feed. What he saw defied all military logic. Human ships were indeed ramming Council vessels. But they were doing it strategically, targeting the largest ships first. Each human vessel would accelerate to maximum velocity and crash into a Council warship's vital systems. The explosions were catastrophic, but that was not all. Some human ships launched small craft that latched onto Council hulls. Moments later, breaching charges detonated. Human soldiers in armored suits poured through the gaps, fighting their way into Council ships. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, all 12 human ships were destroyed, but so were 30 of the Admiral's 50 vessels. The remaining 20 were heavily damaged and limping back to Council space. Zethral studied the after-action reports in silence. The numbers were clear. The humans had lost the battle, but at an unacceptable cost to the Council. A ratio of 1 to 2.5 was not a victory. It was barely survival. And there was something else. Something that disturbed him even more than the casualty figures. The Council had captured 3 human prisoners. All 3 had been wounded. All 3 had attempted to kill themselves rather than be taken alive. 2 had succeeded. The 3rd had been sedated before she could finish the job. "What kind of species fights like this?" Relthin asked quietly. Zethral did not answer immediately. He was thinking about Earth, about a species that had reached the stars only recently. He pulled up information about their homeworld. The gravity was higher than most inhabited planets. The weather patterns were extreme. The native fauna included apex predators that could kill with tooth and claw, and humans had no natural predators. Because they were the predators, a species that evolved to hunt, Zethral said finally. A species that learned to survive by never giving up, by never backing down. He looked at the tactical display again, at the debris field where 12 human ships had made their final stand. A species, he continued softly, that does not fear death. They weaponize it. The words hung in the air. Zethral knew then that this investigation would not end well. The Council had started a war with something they did not understand. And from what he had just witnessed, he was beginning to suspect that humans were not the primitive savages the Council had assumed. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain, and now they had brought that same savage determination to the stars. The question was not whether the Council could defeat the humans. The question was whether the Council could survive the cost of victory. 3 weeks after the first battle, Zethral arrived at the captured human prisoners holding facility. It was a medical station orbiting a gas giant in neutral space. The facility was designed for xenobiology research, not for holding prisoners of war. But these were strange times. The surviving prisoner was a female human. She had been badly injured in the battle. Council medical teams had saved her life, though she had fought them every step of the way. Even sedated, she had tried to remove her breathing tube. Even restrained, she had attempted to break her own neck against the medical bed. Now she sat in an observation cell, fully healed, but still dangerous. Zethral watched her through the transparent wall. She was smaller than he expected. Humans averaged only about 1.8 meters in height. Their bodies were soft, without natural armor or weapons. No claws, no venomous stingers, no reinforced exoskeletons. Yet somehow this species had killed 30 Council warships. The human woman looked back at him with eyes that showed no fear. Her species had binocular vision, both eyes facing forward. Predator eyes, eyes designed for tracking prey. Zethral activated the translation system. "I am Ambassador Zethral of the Galactic Council. I wish to speak with you." The woman said nothing. She simply stared at him with those unnerving, forward-facing eyes. "What is your name?" he asked, still silence. Zethral consulted his datapad. The medical scans had revealed something interesting about human biology. Their bodies contained redundant organs. 2 kidneys when they only needed 1. 2 lungs that could function independently. A heart that could sustain life even if partially damaged. It was the biology of a species designed to survive catastrophic injury. "We do not wish to harm you." Zethral tried again. "We simply want to understand why your people attacked our colonies." The woman finally spoke. Her voice was rough, damaged from screaming during her attempted suicide. Your colonies were slaver stations. You were taking people from unprotected worlds, selling them to the highest bidder. Zethral felt his mandibles click in confusion. That is not true. The Council forbids slavery, does it? The woman leaned forward. Her eyes never left his. Then explain the cargo we found on those stations. Explain the holding cells. Explain the auction records. A cold feeling spread through Zethral's body. He accessed the Council database looking for records of the 3 destroyed colonies. They were listed as agricultural stations, mining operations, research facilities. Nothing about holding cells. Nothing about auctions. If what you say is true, he said carefully, then those were criminal operations, not sanctioned by the Council. The woman smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Criminal operations protected by Council defense platforms. Criminal operations with official Council transponder codes. Sure. Before Zethral could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. His communicator crackled to life. Ambassador!
We are under attack.
Zethral's hearts raced. How many ships? 7 human vessels. They are demanding we release their prisoner. 7 ships against a medical station with minimal defenses. Zethral made a quick decision. Release her. We have no desire for more bloodshed. The woman stood as the cell door opened. She looked at Zethral one more time. You want to understand humans? Then understand this. We do not leave our people behind, ever. She walked out without looking back. Zethral watched her go, then immediately began searching the Council databases for information on the destroyed colonies. He went deeper this time, accessing restricted files that required his ambassadorial clearance. What he found made him sick. The woman had been telling the truth. The 3 colonies were fronts for illegal slavery operations. The Council's official records had been falsified. Someone high up in the government had been protecting these criminals, and the humans had discovered it. They had not attacked the Council out of aggression. They had attacked slavers. Zethral contacted Admiral Kethmore immediately. Admiral, we need to halt all military operations against the humans. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. The Admiral's voice was strained. It is too late for that, Ambassador. Another human fleet has just entered our space. 20 ships this time. They are heading straight for Kepler Station. Kepler Station was one of the Council's largest military installations. It housed over 10,000 personnel and served as a logistics hub for the entire sector. How many ships do we have defending it? Zethral asked. 42 warships. The Admiral paused. But Ambassador, we have studied the human tactics from the last battle. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They are willing to sacrifice everything for victory. Zethral thought about the woman in the cell, about her unwavering stare, about her words. We do not leave our people behind. Ever. Try to establish communication before engaging. Tell them we are investigating the slavery allegations. Tell them we want peace, I will try. But Ambassador, I do not think they will listen. These humans, they are not interested in words. They are interested in action. The transmission ended. Zethral pulled up the tactical display showing the approaching human fleet. 20 ships against 42. Better odds than last time. But somehow he did not feel reassured. He began reviewing everything the Council knew about Earth. The data was fragmented and incomplete. Humans had only been a known species for 3 centuries. But what information existed painted a disturbing picture. Earth's gravity was 1.2 times standard. That meant humans were physically stronger than most spacefaring species, despite their smaller size. Their atmospheric pressure was higher. Their temperature ranges were more extreme. Their planet experienced regular natural disasters that would devastate most civilized worlds. And their history. Zethral read through files on human civilization with growing horror. They had fought wars continuously for their entire recorded history. They had developed nuclear weapons and used them on their own people. They had created diseases as weapons. They had built machines designed for nothing but killing other humans. Most species achieved peace before reaching the stars. Humans had brought their wars with them. The battle at Kepler Station began exactly as Admiral Kethmore predicted. The humans ignored all attempts at communication. They accelerated their ships to attack speed and charged straight at the Council defenses. But this time the Council was prepared. Admiral Kethmore had studied the human tactics. He positioned his ships to avoid ramming attacks. He deployed fighter wings to intercept boarding parties. He even set up ambush positions to catch the humans by surprise. None of it mattered. The humans adapted. When ramming failed, they used their ships as shields for boarding craft. When fighters intercepted them, they detonated their own ships to create debris fields. When ambushes sprung, they fought their way through with a ferocity that defied belief. Zethral watched the battlefields in stunned silence. Human soldiers fought in hard vacuum when their ships were breached. They continued fighting with injuries that should have been fatal. When they ran out of ammunition, they used their environment as weapons, turning hull fragments and broken equipment into deadly projectiles. One particular clip caught his attention. A human soldier had been isolated in a damaged section of a council ship, wounded and surrounded by 8 council marines. Instead of surrendering, the human triggered an explosive. The blast killed everyone in the compartment, including himself. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, all 20 human ships were destroyed, but so were 31 of the 42 council warships. Kepler Station itself was heavily damaged, its shields down and life support failing. The humans had lost again, but they had made the council pay dearly for victory. Zethral compiled his preliminary report as he traveled back to council space. His conclusions were not what the High Chancellor wanted to hear, but they were necessary. Humans are not the aggressors in this conflict. They attacked what they believed to be slaver operations. Our intelligence suggests they were correct. Someone within the council has been running illegal slavery operations and hiding them in official records. Furthermore, humans represent a military threat unlike anything the council has faced. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight for principles. They are willing to accept casualties that would break any other species, and they do not know how to surrender. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Then he typed, "Recommendation: immediate cessation of hostilities. Open negotiations with human leadership. Full investigation of slavery allegations. If we continue this war, we may win every battle, but the cost will be civilization itself." Zethral sent the report and sat back in his chair. Through the viewport, he could see the debris field from the Kepler Station battle. Thousands of pieces of broken ships drifting in the darkness. Each piece represented lives lost, families destroyed, futures ended. And somewhere out there, more human ships were being built. More human soldiers were training. More humans were preparing to fight, because that was what humans did. They fought, not because they enjoyed it, but because they believed it was right, and nothing in the galaxy could stop a species that fought for what they believed in. The High Chancellor did not like Zethral's report. Bright thought and darkness summoned him to a private meeting in the council's inner chambers. The room was small and austere, designed for difficult conversations. "You are suggesting we surrender to a species we outnumber 100 to 1? The Chancellor asked. Its light pulsed an angry red. "I am suggesting we stop fighting before they destroy us." Zethral kept his voice steady despite his fear. "Every battle costs us more ships than we can afford to lose. The humans are perfectly willing to trade one of their vessels for 3 of ours. At that rate, they will run out of ships after we run out of civilization." Bright thought dimmed to a thoughtful blue. "What have you learned about them?" "Beyond their tactics?" Zethral pulled up his research files. "Everything. I have spent weeks studying human history, biology, psychology, and what I have discovered terrifies me." He displayed images of Earth on the holographic projector. "This is their homeworld. Notice the gravity, the atmospheric density, the weather patterns. By our standards, it is a death world. Most council species would need environmental suits just to survive on the surface." The Chancellor studied the images. "And they evolved there naturally?" "Yes, Zethral changed the display to show Earth's fauna, and they shared their world with these creatures. Apex predators with claws, teeth, and venom. Pack hunters that coordinated attacks. Solitary killers that could take down prey 10 times their size. Impressive. But we have fought aggressive species before. Not like this." Zethral pulled up anatomical diagrams. "Human biology is designed for survival. They have redundant organs. They can function with massive blood loss. Their bodies produce adrenaline, a chemical that lets them ignore pain and injury. They can survive in temperature ranges that would kill us. They can go days without food or water." He changed the display again, this time showing human history. "And this is what they did to each other before they reached the stars. Thousands of years of warfare. They developed weapons specifically to kill other humans. Nuclear bombs, chemical weapons, biological agents. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. The Chancellor's light flickered uncertainly. They are monsters. No, Zethral said firmly. They are survivors. Every species in the Council evolved in relatively safe environments. We developed intelligence to build societies, to cooperate, to trade. Humans developed intelligence to hunt, to fight, to win. He pulled up the most disturbing file. And they have something we lack. A concept they call persistence hunting. When humans pursue prey, they do not stop. Ever. They can track for days. They can run for hours. They will chase their target until it literally dies of exhaustion. That is what we are fighting. Not a military. Not an empire. We are fighting a species of persistence predators who have turned their hunting instincts toward war. The Chancellor was silent for a long time. When it finally spoke, its voice was subdued. What do you recommend? Open negotiations immediately. Admit our mistakes with the slavery operations. Offer reparations. And most importantly, never threaten them again. And if they refuse, then we will lose this war. Not today, not tomorrow. But eventually, because humans do not give up. It is not in their nature. Bright thought in darkness pulse slowly, processing this information. I will bring your findings to the full council. In the meantime, continue your research. We need to understand these humans completely. Zethral bowed and left the chamber. As he walked through the corridors of the council building, he could not shake a feeling of deep unease. The council was used to being in control, used to being the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The idea that a young species could threaten them was almost incomprehensible, but the evidence was clear. Humans were not just threatening the council. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson it had forgotten, that technology and numbers meant nothing against an enemy who refused to lose. Zethral returned to his quarters and continued his research. He accessed databases from neutral species who had encountered humans. The reports were consistent and disturbing. The Merchants Guild reported that humans were relentless negotiators. They would spend days haggling over contracts, never accepting the first offer, always pushing for better terms. The Science Directorate noted that human researchers worked longer hours than any other species. They regularly skipped sleep and meals when pursuing a discovery. Independent observers noted that human colonists settled worlds that other species considered uninhabitable. Desert planets, ice worlds, planets with toxic atmospheres. Humans would simply build domes and environmental suits and claim the territory anyway. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Humans were a species that simply did not understand the concept of impossible. Zethral found one report particularly illuminating. It was from a Drenathi merchant who had done business with a human colony. The merchant described arriving at a small human settlement that was under attack by native predators. The creatures were massive, heavily armored, and venomous. The merchant expected the humans to evacuate. Instead, they organized hunting parties. Within a week, they had killed every predator within 100 kilometers. Within a month, they had domesticated the survivors and were using them as guard animals. The merchant's conclusion was simple. Humans do not adapt to their environment. They make the environment adapt to them. Zethral added that quote to his report. It perfectly summarized the challenge facing the council. His research was interrupted by an urgent communication from the council fleet. Another battle had begun. This time, 50 human ships had attacked a council supply depot. Zethral pulled up the tactical feed with a sinking feeling. The council had stationed 80 warships at the depot, thinking the force sufficient to repel any attack. He watched as the battle unfolded. The humans used the same tactics as before, but refined. They had studied the council's responses and adapted. When council ships moved to prevent ramming attacks, the humans used long-range missiles. When council fighters deployed, the humans launched electronic warfare that disrupted communications, and they had brought something new. Several human ships were configured as carriers, launching dozens of small attack craft. Each craft was piloted by a single human in a reinforced suit. They called themselves berserkers. The berserkers were insane. They flew directly into council ships, detonating on impact. Or they would latch onto hulls and cut their way inside with plasma torches. Once inside, they fought with whatever weapons they could carry. Zethril watched one particular berserker hold a corridor against 47 Three-Caxi warriors. The human was wounded multiple times but refused to fall. He used his environment, turning a simple corridor into a deadly trap. He collapsed bulkheads. He vented atmosphere. He used emergency systems as weapons. When he finally died, 6 hours after the battle started, he had killed or wounded over 30 Council soldiers, and he had bought enough time for human demolition teams to reach the ship's reactor. The battle ended after 8 hours. All 50 human ships were destroyed, but so were 62 Council warships. The supply depot itself was completely destroyed, its supplies scattered across space. Zethril compiled the statistics.
3 battles.
92 human ships destroyed. 123 Council warships destroyed. The humans were losing every engagement, but they were winning the war, because the Council could not sustain these losses. Ship construction took years. Training crews took decades. Every vessel lost was a blow to Council military power that could not be easily replaced. Meanwhile, human shipyards were working at full capacity. Human recruitment was at an all-time high, and every battle taught them new tactics that they incorporated into their training. Zethril updated his report. Humans possess an ability we have never encountered. They learn from defeat. Every battle makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them lessons. They are not trying to win individual engagements. They are trying to win the war. And they will sacrifice anything to do so. Most disturbing conclusion: humans do not fear death. They weaponize it. Every soldier knows they might die. They accept it. They plan for it, and they make their deaths count for something. Final recommendation: immediate cessation of all hostilities. The Council cannot win this war without losing everything we have built. We must make peace while we still can. Zethril sent the report and sat in his quarters, staring at the data scrolling across his screens. Numbers, statistics, battle reports, all of them pointing to the same inevitable conclusion. The Council had started a war with a species they did not understand, and that mistake might cost them everything. The Council chamber was packed when Zethril presented his final report. Representatives from all 47 member species attended. Even the neutral observers requested permission to listen. Word had spread that the ambassador had something important to say about the human threat. Zethril stood at the central podium, his mandibles clicking nervously. The holographic displays around him showed graphs, statistics, and battle footage. All of it painted the same grim picture honored delegates. He began. I have spent 3 months studying humanity. I have interviewed prisoners. I have analyzed their history. I have reviewed every battle we have fought, and I have reached a conclusion that I know will be unpopular. He paused, letting the tension build. We cannot defeat the humans, not without destroying ourselves in the process. Outrage erupted from multiple delegations. Several representatives demanded to speak. The High Chancellor pulsed a calming blue and raised a field to silence the chamber. Ambassador Zethril has earned the right to speak. Let him finish. Zethril nodded gratefully. Consider the numbers. We have fought 4 major engagements. We have won all of them, yet we have lost 173 warships. The humans have lost 142 vessels. On paper, we are winning. He changed the display to show shipyard production figures. But look at construction rates. We can build approximately 30 new warships per year across all Council shipyards. Humans can build 50. They started this war with fewer ships. But if current trends continue, they will match our fleet strength within 5 years. And they are improving with every battle. Watch this footage. The hologram showed recent battle recordings. Human ships now incorporated Council shield technology. Their weapons had been upgraded with captured plasma cannons. Their armor used composite materials reverse-engineered from destroyed Council vessels. They are adapting our technology faster than we can develop new defenses, and they are combining it with tactics we have never seen. They do not fight like any species we know, because they did not learn warfare from us. They learned it from each other. Zethril pulled up historical records from Earth. For thousands of years, humans fought amongst themselves. They developed strategies for urban combat, for naval warfare, for aerial attacks, for guerrilla resistance. They have 10,000 years of military theory that we lack. Representative Krell of the Dranathi spoke up. So we increase production. We build more ships. We overwhelm them with numbers. That will not work, Zethril said flatly. Because humans do not care about numbers. They care about objectives. Watch this. The hologram showed the recent battle at Sanctuary Prime, the Council's most heavily defended system. 80 warships protected it. Orbital defense platforms. Minefields. Every defensive measure the Council could deploy. The humans had attacked with 30 ships, and they had won how? The Chancellor asked. Because they did not try to win the battle. They tried to complete their objective. Zethral zoomed in on specific moments. Look here. This human ship deliberately rammed an orbital platform. It destroyed both the platform and itself, but it created a gap in the defenses. Here, 3 human ships sacrificed themselves to destroy a minefield. Here, a single destroyer distracted 15 Council warships while the main human force attacked the command center. Every loss was calculated. Every sacrifice had a purpose. By the time our forces realized what was happening, the humans had achieved complete tactical victory. The chamber fell silent. Delegates studied the battle footage with new understanding. The humans had not won through superior technology or numbers. They had won through sheer determination and strategic planning. There is something else, Zethral said quietly, something more important than tactics or technology. He pulled up intercepted human communications. These are messages sent between human ships during the Sanctuary Prime battle. Listen to them. The first message played. A human captain speaking to her crew moments before ramming a Council battleship. For those we lost. For those we protect. For humanity. Another message. A wounded human soldier refusing evacuation. I stay. Someone has to hold this corridor. A third. A human commander broadcasting to all ships. Remember why we fight? Not for glory. Not for territory. For the right to exist without fear. Zethral let the messages sink in. They do not fight for the Council's reasons. They do not fight for resources or political advantage. They fight because they believe it is right. And nothing in the universe can stop a species that fights for what they believe in. But that is not all. He continued. After each battle, we capture their communications. And do you know what they do? They broadcast the names of their dead. All of them. They list every casualty. Every sacrifice. He played a recording. A human female voice reading names for hours. Each name followed by a brief description. Captain Sarah Chen commanded the destroyer Valiant, died ramming the defense platform to protect her crew. Sergeant Marcus Wu held Corridor 7 for 6 hours, bought time for the evacuation of 200 civilians. The list went on and on. Hundreds of names, thousands, each one remembered, each sacrifice honored. They do not forget their dead, Zethral said. They remember every loss, and they use that memory as fuel. Every human who dies becomes a reason for the living to fight harder. He pulled up one final piece of evidence. And they have a saying, something they tell each other before battle. We do not leave our people behind, ever. That is why they attacked the slavery operations. Not because the Council threatened them, but because someone was taking people, and humans do not accept that. They cannot accept it. It goes against everything they are. The High Chancellor dimmed thoughtfully. What are you proposing? Peace, immediately, Zethral said. We admit our mistakes. We shut down all slavery operations. We offer reparations. And we negotiate an alliance? Representative Krell protested. With these savages? They are not savages, Zethral said firmly. They are survivors. And we need what they have. Determination. Adaptability. The will to fight when others would surrender. He looked around the chamber at all the assembled delegates. The Council has been at peace for so long that we have forgotten how to fight. We rely on technology, on numbers, on rational calculations of cost and benefit. Humans do not think that way. They think about right and wrong, about protecting their people, about never giving up. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they are cruel, not because they are aggressive, but because they refuse to lose. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates demanded continued war. Others called for immediate negotiations. The arguments went on for hours. Finally, the High Chancellor called for order. We will put it to a vote, all in favor of opening peace negotiations with humanity. Zethral held his breath as the votes were tallied. It was close, very close, but in the end reason prevailed. The Council voted to seek peace. The Chancellor turned to Zethral. Ambassador, you will lead the diplomatic mission. Make contact with human leadership. Offer our terms. And pray they are willing to listen. Zethral bowed. I will do my best. As he left the chamber, Zethral could not help but wonder if it was already too late. The humans had been attacked without provocation. They had lost thousands of people. Would they accept peace? Or would they continue fighting until the council was destroyed? He would find out soon enough. A human fleet had just been detected entering council space. 150 ships, the largest force they had ever assembled, and they were heading straight for the council homeworld. Zethral looked at the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. This was it, the moment that would determine the future of the galaxy. Either the council would make peace with humanity, or everything would burn. He just hoped he could find the right words to make the humans understand. Because if he failed, there would be no second chance. The human fleet arrived in council space 3 days after the vote for peace. 150 warships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel bore the scars of previous battles. Repaired hull breaches, welded armor plates, burn marks from plasma weapons. These were not fresh ships. These were veterans, and they had come for a reckoning. Zethral stood in the council's primary communication center watching the fleet approach. The council had scrambled every available warship to defend the homeworld. 200 vessels formed a defensive perimeter. It would not be enough, but the humans did not attack. They simply stopped at the edge of weapons range and waited. Open a channel, Zethral ordered. All frequencies. I want them to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Ambassador. Zethral took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on what he said next. This is Ambassador Zethral of the Galactic Council. I speak on behalf of all member species. We wish to open negotiations for peace. Silence. For several long moments, there was no response. Then a human voice came through the speakers, clear and steady despite the universal translator. This is Admiral Catherine Zhang of the Human Defense Fleet. We are listening. Zethral felt a surge of relief. They were willing to talk. That was more than he had dared hope for. Admiral Zhang, we have investigated your claims about slavery operations in council space. Your allegations were correct. Criminal elements were operating under false council authority. We have shut down all such operations and arrested those responsible. The Admiral's response was immediate. Prove it. Send us the locations. The arrest records. The rescued prisoners. Zethral transmitted the data. The council had moved quickly once the truth was revealed. 3 high-ranking officials had been arrested. 7 illegal operations shut down. Over 2,000 prisoners freed. There was a pause while the humans reviewed the information. Then the Admiral spoke again. This is a start, but not enough. What do you require? Zethral asked. The council will formally abolish all forms of slavery, not just the illegal operations. All of it, throughout your territory, with independent oversight to ensure compliance. Zethral hesitated. Some council species used what they called indentured servitude. Technically not slavery, but close enough. Banning it would cause political problems, but looking at the human fleet, he knew there was only one answer. Agreed. What else? Reparations. For the families of those killed in this war. For the colonies damaged. For the freed prisoners who need rehabilitation. The amount. Admiral Zhang named a figure that made Zethral's mandibles click in shock. It was enormous, but not unreasonable given the damage both sides had suffered. Agreed. Is there more? Yes, the Admiral paused. We want a seat on the council. Now it was Zethral's turn to pause. Joining the council was a lengthy process. It required approval from all member species. It required technological and cultural evaluations. It took decades. That will take time, Admiral. The process can be accelerated. The Admiral cut him off. You have 150 reasons hanging in space to motivate the process. Zethral looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had not moved, had not powered weapons, but the threat was clear. Accept these terms or the war continues. I will bring your request to the council immediately. But Admiral, I must ask, why do you want a seat on the council? You have proven you can survive without us. For a moment, the Admiral was silent. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that the translator could not fully capture. Because we do not want to fight anymore, Ambassador. We are tired of war. We have fought for thousands of years on our own world. We came to the stars hoping for something better. We do not want enemies. We want allies, but we will not tolerate injustice. We cannot. When we see slavery, we act. When we see oppression, we fight. That is who we are. If the Council can accept that, then we can work together. Zethrall felt something shift in his understanding. The humans were not the savages the Council had feared. They were not mindless aggressors. They were idealists with the power to enforce their ideals. I understand, Admiral. Give me 1 hour, 1 hour. The Admiral agreed. Then we will need your answer. The channel closed. Zethrall immediately called an emergency council session. Every delegate appeared within minutes. They knew what was at stake. He presented the human demands. The reactions were predictable. Outrage about accelerated membership. Protests about the reparations. Concern about the slavery ban. But underneath the protests, Zethrall sensed something else. Fear. The Council was afraid. Not just of the human fleet, but of what humanity represented, a species that refused to compromise on principles, that would fight impossible odds rather than accept injustice, that saw slavery and said no, even if it meant war. The vote was surprisingly quick. The Council agreed to all human demands, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The alternative was destruction. Zethrall returned to the communication center and reopened the channel. Admiral Zhang, the Council accepts your terms. All of them. We are prepared to formalize the agreement immediately. There was a pause. Then the Admiral's voice came through, tinged with something that might have been relief. Thank you, Ambassador. We will send representatives to begin the formal negotiations. And Ambassador, we are sorry for your losses. We did not want this war. Zethrall clicked his mandibles softly. Neither did we, Admiral. Neither did we. The human fleet began to withdraw. Not all at once, but gradually. A show of good faith. Zethrall watched them go and allowed himself a moment of exhausted relief. The war was over. The Council had survived, but everything had changed. 5 years later, Zethrall attended a Council peacekeeping operation on a frontier world. Pirates had been raiding colonies. The local government requested assistance. The Council sent a joint task force. 3 Caxi diplomats, Luminar mediators, Dranathi technical specialists, and a company of human marines. Zethrall watched the humans work. They negotiated first, always trying to find a peaceful solution. But when negotiation failed, they acted decisively. The pirate base was neutralized within a day. No civilian casualties, minimal damage to infrastructure. And afterward, the human marines stayed. They helped rebuild damaged buildings. They trained local security forces. They played with children in the streets. One of the children, a young Thrikaxi, approached Zethrall. Ambassador, are humans really as scary as everyone says? Zethrall looked at the human marines. They were laughing, sharing rations with grateful colonists. One was teaching a group of children how to throw a ball. Another was helping an elderly Luminar repair their communication device. He thought about the war, about the battles, about the terrible cost in lives, about the moment when the galaxy had teetered on the edge of catastrophe. Then he looked back at the child. Humans are not scary. They are determined. When they see something wrong, they do not accept it. They fix it. And nothing can stop them when they decide something needs to change. Is that good or bad? The child asked. Zethrall considered the question. It is both. It is terrifying to face them as enemies, but it is wonderful to have them as friends. They will never abandon you. They will never let you down. They will fight for you like you are one of their own. The child seemed satisfied with that answer and ran off to join the other children. Zethrall watched the humans work. He thought about how close the galaxy had come to disaster, how the Council's arrogance had nearly destroyed them, how they had learned, too late, that technological superiority meant nothing against an enemy who refused to lose. But they had learned. And now, 5 years later, human peacekeepers were among the most requested forces in the galaxy, not because they were the strongest, though they were strong, not because they had the best weapons, though their weapons were excellent, but because everyone knew that when humans made a promise, they kept it. When they took a mission, they completed it. When they protected someone, that person stayed protected. The galaxy had learned why humans were the most feared species, not because of their violence, not because of their weapons, not because of their willingness to die, but because humans had standards. Impossible standards. They believed in things like justice, freedom, and protecting the innocent. And when something violated those standards, they did not accept it. They fixed it. That was what made them dangerous. Not their warships. Not their tactics. but their absolute refusal to accept a universe where injustice went unchallenged, and that same quality that made them dangerous as enemies made them invaluable as allies. Zethral prepared his final report on human integration into the Council. After 5 years, he had seen enough to reach a definitive conclusion. Humanity should not just be welcomed into the Council. They should be embraced, because they remind us of something we had forgotten. That peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of justice. And sometimes justice requires those willing to fight for it. The galaxy is better for having humans in it. Not because they make us safer, though they do, but because they make us better. They challenge us to live up to our own ideals, to never accept injustice as inevitable, to never stop fighting for what is right. That is why humans are the most feared species in the galaxy, because when humans decide something is wrong, they do not accept it. They fix it, and nothing in the universe can stop them.